Heartbeat Alaska would like to thank the following sponsors for making our show possible. Brown's Electric. Thank you, Brown's Electric, for your generous support. Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you by Frontier Flying Service. Thank you, Frontier, for getting Heartbeat Alaska airborne.
Heartbeat Alaska is made possible by Kupik Carlisle Transportation, your full-service transportation and logistics company.
1, 2, 3, 4, let's go.
It's Heartbeat.
It's a fabulous show.
Alaska.
Hi, Heartbeat Alaska.
It's Heartbeat. Alaska.
Pull up a chair and enjoy the show.
You can hear it from Sitka to Barrow. Gather around for Jeannie's show. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo. It's the Aleut, the Indian, and the Eskimo.
Welcome one, welcome all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heartbeat Alaska Native News and Information. I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I am painting. We're moving into a new studio, and we're looking for volunteers. More about that later. Today on Heartbeat Alaska, we travel up the Nushagak River. Fishing is a major issue still. We aired this story a few years ago, but the issues remain the same. And speaking of issues, I'm looking for volunteers to come and help. But don't volunteer unless you're willing to work, right, Ted? It's a great show.
From home, we love Heartbeat Alaska.
Most of our dinner tables come from the land itself, what Mother Nature provides, like the moose, caribou, ptarmigans, waterfowls.
If Alaska is a state rich in resources, then the Nushagak River region is one of the richest areas.
Nushagak River is on the map, for catching the biggest king salmon. And the biggest moose was caught, 3-4 miles from the mouth of Molchatna.
The Nushagak River runs over 200 miles and drains into Bristol Bay near Dillingham. The area supports a huge commercial fishery, a vital subsistence fishery, and a fast-growing sports fishery. It's a land of timeless beauty where Native Alaskans have been carving out an existence for centuries. It's a land with a growing reputation.
People come from all over the world to see the wildlife that Alaska has and to fish its grand fisheries, to catch salmon, rainbow trout.
But it takes more than a pristine environment to make a healthy economy.
Going through a very, very tough time. I've been involved at the plant level here for 21 years, and this is probably one of the most difficult years of those 21 that I've ever seen this industry go through. And I don't think we have a bright light at the end of the tunnel yet.
Norman Van Voctor is the Bristol Bay manager for the Peter Pan Seafoods. He knows as well as anyone that the commercial fishing in Bristol Bay is in trouble, big trouble. The fish are there, the workers are ready, but the price is low and getting lower.
Last year, we advanced 65 cents a pound, and a lot of the final fish prices were in the 70 to 71 cent range. This year, our base price is 40 cents a pound, almost a 50% reduction. And do I I see much upside potential at this point? No, I don't. The single biggest change in our business right now is the advent of farm fish.
We had a disaster year. We didn't catch much fish out in the bay, and the price has been going down so low. I had to look for elsewhere to find a job, you know, for the summer, you know.
Gabriel Andrew has felt the price drop firsthand. He's just one of many Bristol Bay residents faced with a situation that is getting worse and worse, and faced with decisions that are getting harder and harder.
Well, out here in the bush, you don't get very much jobs, opportunities. You know, you'd have to go move to Dillingham or to Anchorage to get money.
Like in the past we share and share alike with our lands, with the moose and caribou and any kind of wild subsistence we do, fishing, we all share and share alike. But today, since the money is going down the drain with commercial fishing, it's going to get tougher.
Wassily Hanson has also seen tough times before and knows that tough times mean tough decisions, but some decisions are forever.
I think maybe the price of fish going down the drain, and they're not doing like they used to do. But now today, that since the price of fish going down, and not very many people are very getting interested in their fishing because of the price. And now the people, I think, maybe turning to their lands and trying to sell a piece of land here and there, just trying to further their livelihood in the future.
What Wassily is talking about are native allotments. Native allotments are parcels of land up to 160 acres that were granted to Native Alaskans from early 1900s up until the 70s. These were intended to be places where the people who were given the allotment, the allottees as they're called, could hunt and fish for subsistence. And the fish are there.
Well, to begin with, there weren't any sport camps up here. We quit commercial fishing early and came up here, and we were the only boat on the river. And fished down at Portage Creek, talked to the Portage Creekers, and then the sport camps started to come in, and then they started selling some of the allotments and building on them, and so it's getting, you know, what we consider crowded.
Many natives with allotments are now faced with a decision they never wanted to make. Should I sell?
Most of the people here was depending on their land now in the future. There was a talk about selling, but the elders said that we should hang on to our land because our land will be feeding us and taking care of us in the future.
But the future can seem a long way away to someone who desperately needs money, a person who has a family to look out for, and has little hope of finding a job. In the floundering economy of the Bristol Bay area, just looking out for tomorrow or just making it through today can be a challenge.
There's a heartbeat, louder than thunder, revolution.
Stay tuned for more Heartbeat Alaska.
Turn it up! Turn it up!
Motoring around on the Nushagak River, sometimes it seems so hard to understand why someone would sell. But when a 100-acre allotment can sell for anywhere between $50,000 and $300,000, some people have little choice.
Native allotments pose a problem because if they do go into private ownership and are turned into cottages or camps or recreational subdivisions, we feel it's going to be very difficult for us to manage all the surrounding lands and continue to do that effectively for subsistence.
Tim Troll is the CEO for Chogyang Limited, the native corporation for Dillingham, Ekwok, and Portage Creek. Chogyang Limited owns 360,000 acres of land used by the shareholders.
We're charged by our shareholders to manage those lands. At least the policy we have is that we try to manage those lands to preserve their subsistence value for our shareholders. I try to imagine what our shareholders would think if we, as the native corporation, decided we wanted to sell off all of our land that was selected, that we selected primarily for subsistence. I think there'd be an uproar. Most of the native allotments were selected for the very same reason: subsistence, prior subsistence use.
When allotments are sold to outside interests, Tim's job gets harder. Many of the sold allotments wind up being used for recreation, lodges, sports hunting, and sports fishing. Allotments sold to recreational interests may become doorways to the lands around them. Tim's job will get harder when small tracts of land inside or next to the large ones he manages have lodges or sports camps built on them.
We fear is that if they are sold, we'll lose control of our own lands and the resources on our lands by virtue of all those inholdings.
Tim's not the only one who's concerned.
I think at this point it's just kind of a, what you would call a pain or a thorn. If we don't do something, I think it'll be a big deal, and you know, we could have another Kenai.
Another Kenai is a fear we heard from a number of people as we traveled up and down the Nushagak. Another thing we found were solutions.
The Conservancy gets calls 3 or 4 times a week from native folks that are looking for one reason or another to sell their allotment.
Paul Jackson is the director of Northern and Western programs for the Nature Conservancy of Alaska. The Conservancy is one of a number of groups who are buying conservation easements along the Nushagak. Easements that may ease the problems facing the natives on the Nushagak.
Conservation easement is a way that if someone wants or needs to sell their land, it's an option where they can actually gain some income, but still retain title, hold title to the land. For example, if you own 100 acres and it's worth X amount of dollars, the Nature Conservancy will pay you a certain percentage of what the development rights on that land are worth, and we'll draw up a contract between us that basically would say what you could and couldn't do. For example, on a native allotment, we would typically allow folks to still build a cabin and be able to use the land for subsistence, for hunting, fishing, etc. And then they could pass that on to their heirs, or they could even sell it. The only hitch is that the easement that we would hold on the property stays with the property into perpetuity.
Paul knows he has a lot of work in front of him. Much of that work is education.
Most people don't know what's that yet, you know, they don't know what it's all about. Okay. And it's a good thing, you know, to educate them, you know, and they'll probably go for that, you know, and then kind of talk to those guys not to be selling to somebody else.
Simply traveling the Nushagak and talking to the people along the river. Many have never heard of the Nature Conservancy.
Well, the Nature Conservancy is an international conservation organization. We have programs in all 50 states and 31 countries. And we're very different than most conservation organizations. We're not an advocacy group. We don't stand in front of bulldozers. We don't sue people, litigate. We only work with willing landowners that want to implement conservation action and strategies.
Paul is not alone. The Nature Conservancy is only one group that sees this situation on the Nushagak not as a problem, but an opportunity.
The Nushagak Mulchatna Wood Tikchik Land Trust is a group that we put together of interested people and to acquire easements and then shepherd those easements or steward those easements and then assist in orderly development.
The Land Trust is looking for support from anybody willing to help. Already, they've enlisted help from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Conservation Fund, Trout Unlimited, as well as the Nature Conservancy.
What we envision is to attempt to put groups together and get money and buy the conservation easement on the allotment so that the person could enjoy the allotment still, and or assist in orderly development, just kind of maintain the unique flavor of this land.
Maintaining that unique flavor doesn't mean eliminating recreational users altogether. It just means thinking carefully about where and how much.
There's a heartbeat, louder thunder, revolution.
Look for Heartbeat Alaska, because we're looking out for you.
If you or someone you know would like to help Jeannie prepare her new studio, call 907-563-7440.
And there's nothing bad, inherently bad, about sport hunting, sport fishing, or lodges. It's just how much and where. Some places are better suited to, for example, put up a lodge than other areas. So we'd like to work with people to help identify where some of the critical habitat is and where some of the less critical habitat is.
The idea of conservation easements is catching on up and down the river.
It would be similar to having your cake and eating it too, if somehow they could sell the developmental rights and get the income they needed from it and still have the land so that they could sell it to an individual for a cabin or keep it for their family for posterity.
They would rather see the land itself being passed down to the younger generations, because that's their future and this is their future land. So I'd really look into that, and I'd probably go for it. I'd like to see something develop like that, because in the long run you don't actually lose anything, and that will benefit our younger generations, because when we do pass on, then the land can go right back to them, and it will be their responsibility to take care of it.
Even with the work of the Land Trust and the Nature Conservancy, development continues on the Nushagak. Sport, fishing, and other recreational users are here to stay. Adapting to these changes may be the key to survival. Many natives along the river have even turned to working with the sports fishermen as guides to earn a decent income.
At this day and age, from the 90s to 2000, you got to, in the year 2000, a guy got to be able to go along with the changes, and instead of kicking the sport fishermen and the drifters and people that come out from the lower 48, be able to reach for that dollar instead of tell them they're not welcome in our land, But mostly I enjoy life here along the Nushagak River and taking clients out and catching the fish.
That lifestyle is something more and more people are discovering and falling in love with. The questions for the future of the Nushagak are not who will be allowed and who won't, but how everyone can get along together.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for everyone to work together as far as
managing these allotments, the Nature Conservancy and the native corporations that are involved. I think it works for everyone to do that, and I think all the user groups appreciate what's here. The beauty, the naturalness of it, everything that's here is something that all the user groups that come here really want to see and try really hard not to destroy in any manner.
Well, hold it up so we can see it.
And we have a huge variety of user groups that come out to use this land. We have sport fishermen, we have people that come for subsistence, people that live here that either sport fish or take a moose for their freezer or a caribou, people that set their own subsistence nets and everything. And we've found a way on the river to make it all work so that all the user groups are able to get along and live in a cooperative manner. And it's been quite an evolution and an experience that makes me feel good.
The importance of sharing and protecting the resource goes far beyond the people who live on the Nushagak.
We like to think of it as protecting the habitat that all the wild salmon in Bristol Bay depend upon, and we realize that that is one of the key linchpins to this whole ecosystem up here, and that if we're not careful, and if these lakes in this region or these rivers become overpopulated, overused, that habitat is likely to be compromised, and the wild salmon that we've been depending upon here for subsistence and for income, for at least for commercial income, well over 100 years, and subsistence for perhaps thousands of years, could be lost.
And it even goes beyond that. There is a delicate balance we have to maintain for ourselves and for the future. At the end of the day, it's good to know strong people with strong hearts are working hard to preserve what is there and balance ancient rhythms with changing times. And maybe what we all need is time to spend listening to the voices. Voices that tell us how this land was and remind us why we need to walk carefully into the future.
Somewhere upriver is where I go every year to go camping and seeing the way the land is and the way it used to be. It's pretty much the way I like to see it for myself, and I would like to experience it, seeing it through my children's eyes, the way it is. Nothing, just trees and animals on it, no lodges or anything. That's how I'd like to see it in the future.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me for Heartbeat Alaska. Remember, I'm looking for volunteers. Come and help me renovate my studio. Call 907-563-7440. Hello to all my good friends in Allotments. Have a great day. God bless every single one of you. Join me again next week for more Native News.